Hey, what's up guys? It's Mark Petree here from Clicks Profit in Huntington Beach. So today I wanted to go over how keyword match types work. This is really important to understand. These are the fundamentals of Google Ads. And I also want to explain why this stuff matters and why it's so important that you understand these concepts for your limo business. You'll see behind me, I drew up some different all of the different match types. And so let me explain first off what match types are. I guess the easiest way to explain match types is it's Google's way of pairing a search query. Now, a search query is when you Google something, okay? So when I Google best limo service near me, that's a search query, right? So it's Google's way of matching up the search query with the keyword, okay? So keywords, these are what we put in our actual accounts. We come up with a list of keywords that fit your business, that fit your ideal customer avatar, and the search queries are the searches those people are making. Essentially what Google is doing is when someone makes a search query, Google goes through, obviously not a person, their algorithm goes through your whole account and it tries to find a keyword that matches up with that search query. It's based on lots of different factors, but I'm gonna keep this really simple, okay? So what they're doing is someone makes a search query, let's say in your area, an area that you're targeting, and Google goes through your account and searches for a keyword that matches up with that search query. There's multiple keyword match types, and there really needs to be, and I'll explain why. But first, let me start going into the different match types to give you guys kind of a better idea of how they work. When you look at a keyword and you see the keyword is just by itself, there's no pluses, there's no quotes, there's no brackets around it, we call that a broad match keyword. I see broad match keywords all the time when I audit accounts. And it's really unfortunate because it typically means that person is wasting a whole lot of money. I say typically, I have seen accounts that have lots of broad match keywords that do well, but my advice is for most of the people most of the time. So just keep this in mind. When you just see the keyword by itself, okay, this is what goes in the actual Google Ad account, and it doesn't have pluses, brackets, quotes around it, that is a broad match keyword. Next, we have modified broad match. And these are the keywords that you'll notice there's a plus in front of the actual word. So that means it's a modified broad match keyword, and I'll explain how those work in a minute. Next, we have phrase match. So phrase match keywords are any keyword phrase that you see that has quotes around it. The whole phrase needs to have quotes around it. So it wouldn't work if two of the words have quotes around them, and then there's another word out here without quotes around them. That does not work. And it's the same thing with exact match. So exact match down here is when there are brackets around the actual keyword phrase here, okay? And you cannot have a word outside of the bracket. It's got to be inside the brackets. And so how do they work? You can think of it as different ways of targeting your customers or potential clients. And it goes from the least specific to the most specific. And so let me explain. Let's actually start out with really the easiest one to understand. And that is exact match. Let's just say I'm looking for an airport limo service in my area, okay? So I just search airport limo, okay? That's the query, that's what I actually type into Google, okay? Next, what happens when that person hits enter, the Google algorithm is going through the millions of campaigns it has running, and it's trying to find campaigns that are targeting that location that the user was in, right? So it's basing it off your IP address, the cell towers. So first off, it's saying, which advertisers do we have that are targeting this location? Next, the algorithm's like, okay, which of those advertisers have the most relevant keyword that matches this in their account? Pretend this is your company and you actually have that exact keyword, airport limo, as an exact match keyword in your account. These two match up, and when they match, the ad is shown, okay? So user makes a search query, Google checks for all the campaigns, all their advertisers in that certain location. Then they check for all of those advertisers and what keywords they have in their actual account. When they match up the advertiser that's bidding the highest and some other factors, when they match that advertiser up, they pick, the top 7 or 8 advertisers and they put them on the first page. So someone does a search airport limo, the keyword in the account, they match up. This advertiser who has this keyword in their account, their ad is shown. That's all keywords do. They match up with search queries and they let Google know, okay, show this person's ad because they are in a location I am targeting and their search query matches a search I have in my actual account. So exact match is easy to understand because if I put a word here, let's say I said best airport limo, okay? So that's my search query. So I'm not searching airport limo, I'm just searching best airport limo or airport limo service, so I put a word after it. Google does the same thing, goes through the whole account. Let's say this is the only keyword I have in my account. Well, the ad isn't going to show because it's got to match up exactly. So user searches airport limo service and my exact match keyword in the account is airport limo. Google's like, we're not showing the ad because it's got to match the exact search query. The words have to be in the exact order for exact match. And recently, Google has, in an effort to, I'm sure, make more profit, they have kind of altered exact match, and they have what are called close variants now. And so what this means is it doesn't have to match exactly. I've seen before where in the account, these words might be switched around, and it still counts it as a close variant, which us advertising nerds, we do not like that at all because the whole point of exact match is to match the query exactly. Because if you switch the words around, it can have different meaning, right? But just remember, for most of the time, it does have to match exactly the search query, okay? So why don't we just do all exact match keywords in our account? That's a great question. Typically, exact match keywords are going to be a lot more expensive. Google charges a premium. When you want your targeting to be that tight, Google typically charges a premium. That's why typically with exact match keywords, you are going to pay the most per click, okay? And then it goes less per click. So broad match keywords are typically the cheapest match type. So that's why you don't want to just use exact match keywords. So next we have phrase match. Now phrase match is very similar to exact match in that the words need to be in the same order. So I've given you some example search queries, okay? So let's say someone searches airport limo service or someone searches best airport limos. Well, you notice, what do I have in each of these 2 search queries? I have this. I have that exact phrase in the search query. That's why they call it phrase match, because you have that exact phrase in the search query. Now, with this one, there's a word after it, and this one, there's a word before. And there could even be a word before and after it. The ad would still show, okay? The ad would still show. Because as long as this phrase is in the search query, it tells Google, show the ad, okay? All right, so next, we get to modified broad match. Now, this is probably my favorite match type for several different reasons. One reason, it's usually less expensive than phrase match and exact match. And 2, many times we think we know every search someone might type, but I think they found, I forget the exact stats, but even today, after there have been probably billions, maybe trillions, probably trillions of searches at this point, still they're finding that 15 to 20% of searches made are new searches, okay? And that's after trillions of searches. So what does that really tell you? That tells you that if you're just relying on these two match types, you're gonna miss out on some really good potential traffic that would be less expensive. So modified broad match, how it works is these words, when there's this plus here, what that's saying is that word must be in the search query, okay? That word has to be there. So here are my examples here. And you'll notice that in both examples, both of these words are present, right? So next to the plus, there's airport. Next to this plus, there's limo. It's limo and airport are both present over here. Now, there's a word between them too, and that's essentially why it's different than phrase match. So phrase match, there can be words before, there can be words after, but there can't be words in between. With broad match modified, there can be words in between. And also, these words can be switched around, right? So as long as each of these words is in the search query, right? Over here, it's this word and this word, then the ad is shown. Now, you'll probably notice with this one, the phrase match keyword could have triggered that as well, right? Because it's in the same order and the same words. So either of these keywords could trigger this. So that's modified broad match. And again, that's probably my favorite match type because typically lower cost, typically get new ideas for new keywords you might not have thought of. And so let's go to broad match keywords. Now, broad match keywords I don't use very often, very sparingly, and here's why. So you notice our keyword here, airport limo. The search query over here is taxi to airport. This column over here, I'm just showing you search queries that will be triggered by these keywords, okay? So both of these searches would be triggered by this keyword. So what's the problem with that? Well, taxi to airport is much different than airport limo. And any of you livery companies, limousine company owners know there's a big difference between those two things. However, how broad match keywords work is Google doesn't have to have any of these words in the search phrase. So what they're doing is essentially they're saying, okay, airport limo, that's pretty much like, you know, airport transportation. And so taxi to airport, that's pretty similar. So show the ad. You know, they'll show it for airport transportation. I've seen these in my actual client accounts, so verified. They will show, when you have a broad match keyword, they take plenty of liberties. And that's why, that's one of the reasons Google is where it is today, because they make a ton of money off these broad match keywords, because many people think, oh, you know, Google Ads is easy. I can go in, I'm going to drop some keywords in, write some ads, good to go, right? Wrong. I've seen tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars wasted because of broad match keywords. I'll be saying this 5-10 years from now, and I'm sure there's still going to be most people using broad match keywords because it's deceptively simple. When you set up a Google Ads campaign and you put your keywords in, you're like, oh, this is simple. So here's my keyword, airport limo or airport limo service, because that's what I'm looking for. They write some ads, and next thing you know, you've got a bill for $1,000 and only got 1 or 2 phone calls, and you didn't book anything. This is why. So here's my advice to you. If you are running your own Google ad campaign and you see any of these broad match keywords in your account, pause them. Don't delete them, just pause them. You do not want these in your account. The only time I'm ever okay with seeing them in an account is when someone really understands what they're doing. Those are really kind of the most important things to know about how keyword match types work. And why does it matter? It's very easy to waste a lot of money by doing things like using all exact match keywords. You won't waste as much as you would if you used all broad match keywords, but you could be paying way too much per click. So the question is, well, which match type do I want to use then? Well, the answer is you want to use all of the match types, because I have seen sometimes an exact match keyword will outperform a broad match modified keyword, and vice versa. So you never know which keyword match type is going to give you the best results. That's why you want to use all of them, and you want to test. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you learned something from it, especially if you're building your own Google ad campaigns. This is very helpful, but even if you're not, if you have an agency running your campaign right now, and you have access to the campaign, which you should be able to see your own campaign, you want to go in that account and you want to just make sure they're not using a bunch of broad match keywords. Now, again, I'm not saying if they have 1 or 2 in the account and the metrics look good, then I'm not saying to never use them. What I'm saying is, if you go into your account and you see they have, a dozen, 2, 3 dozen of these broad match keywords in there, you might have an issue. I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. Please give this a like and share it if you found it useful. I'll see you next time.